Hello everyone, welcome to the third video for the Create a Complete Game in Mobile series. And in this video, we are going to fix up some of the things we left in the gameplay UI and we'll start creating the basic UI for the gameplay. So let's fix our gameplay UI first. So as you can see in the trailer, we had a series of cars spawning and we also created that function in our main menu manager when the awake method was called in the start functions. So we need to create the spawn car function. So to do that, let's first add a car to our scene. So let's go inside Unity and inside our resources, let's add our default car of the scene and we'll rename it to menu car. And for our menu car, we are not going to change anything, but we'll attach a rigid body 2D component to it. And as you can see, it's not going to have any collisions. It won't matter much. Now we'll attach a trail renderer component to it, and this trail renderer, its width. Uh, for the time, let's set the time to 1 second. And for now, let's not do anything. We'll set it up later. And we'll also create a menu car script which going to initialize this menu car and spawn at the correct position. And we'll save this menu car as a prefab. So inside a prefabs, let's save this menu car, and inside our main menu manager, let's delete this menu car. And where we set the car prefab, we'll attach the menu car. So let's start scripting the menu car. So the menu car is going to spawn at come from the left and move towards the right. So its velocity is going to be 1 1. And first we'll spawn it like any of the left or the bottom edge. Then we'll move -1 multiplied by some random units. Then we'll set its velocity to random. So we'll do it inside the menu car, and inside the spawn car, we'll instantiate the car and we'll set its functions. So let's do that. So for the menu car, we are going to have a couple of parameters. The first one is a serialized field and the private list of sprites. And these are going to be the default cars. We want to spawn a random car. Then we'll have a serialized field private list of colors, and we'll just call it colors. And after that, let's create a private vector3 start pose. So whenever it goes past a certain point, we'll reset its position. And after our start pose, we are going to have the trail renderer. So public trail renderer, and not public, private trail renderer, and we'll just call it trail renderer, and let's set to this. And inside our initialize function, whenever the initialize is called, it needs to be public, and let's just call it init. So let's first create the spawn position. So v2 spawn pose is going to be unity engine dot random dot range, and will spawn at a 50-50% chance, so is equals to 0. Then will spawn on the x-axis. So for the x-axis, the y position is going to be constant, so it's going to be unity engine dot random dot range, and we are spawning along the x-axis. So y position is constant, but the x position is going to be changed from -6 to +6, and the rest is going to be 0. Else we'll copy the same code and will spawn on the y-axis. So instead of having the 0 here, we'll have a random value here, and here we are just going to get from -10 to +10. So it's around 20 units long, so the y position, and we'll do transform and translate. Will first translate the depending on the spawn post, so it will move there, and hmm 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 -6 to 6. Okay, okay, okay. Do we need negative? Don't know, we'll see it afterwards. And then we'll do transform dot translate, and we need to translate new vector to we need to translate in the backward direction and multiply by some random value. So let's do unity engine dot random dot range, and we'll move around 20 to 50 units. So it's going to set the start position, and we'll also set the transform dot rotation dot Euler angles to be new vector 3, and it's going to be 0 0 -45. Only Euler angles will be sufficient, there is no need to add the rotation. And after we set up its rotation, we also need to set its velocity, but let's get the rigid body component first. And after getting a rigid body, we'll set the velocity. It's going to be new vector 2. We are going in the forward direction, and we'll multiply the random range from 20 to 50. Not random dot range, let's use the unity engine dot random dot range, and we'll let's set it 4 to 20, so it's around, it should be good enough. And after that, we also need to spread the sprite. So in random in x is equals to random dot range from 0 till cards dot count, so it will set up the sprite. And the sprite renderer dot sprite is going to be the cars, and we'll set the random index. We also need to set the trail renderer is going to be get component trail renderer, and the trail renderer dot start color gradient. We'll need to set a gradient, but I think we'll list of let's do a gradient, and we'll set its color, and we'll set it to colors, and we'll pass the random index. So this should set up the initialize function, and inside the update, if transform dot position dot x is greater than 18f, or transform dot position dot y is greater than 20f, then we'll reset its position. So the first thing we'll do is trail render dot enabled to false, and after setting it to false, we'll set the transform dot position to the start pose, and we'll invoke the trail on after 1.2 seconds. So the position is going to change, so it's like void trail on, and here we'll just do trail renderer dot enable to pro. So whenever the trail is instantly restarted, it's going to spawn a trail from the start post to the end post. So it will spawn a trail in the negative direction. So that's why we are spawning later. And inside our menu manager, inside our spawn car, will first spawn the car. So let's do where current car is going to be instantiated, and we are going to instantiate the car prefab at transform dot position car prefab dot transform dot position and identity, and afterwards we'll get the menu car component and we'll initialize. So that should be enough to show our rails. So let's go inside Unity and let's see if the trails are working. Everything is perfectly set up, so there should not be any problems. And object reference not set to, and did we not set up the main menu manager menu car? Where did the object reference is not set up? I think maybe inside the menu manager. Trade renderer. Okay, the cars and the colors are not set up. So let's go inside our menu car. And there is also no menu car. So let's hide it and let's set the time to 0.8. Minimum vertex distance, color doesn't matter, but let's also set the width to 0.8. And afterwards the rest is going to be. So for this we have 6 cars, and let's add our 6 cars to the sprite. So inside our resources folder, the first one is the ambulance, the next one is the Audi, and there's this, I don't know which car are there, but we'll just directly use it, the mini truck, and this one is a minivan, that one was an ambulance. And similarly inside a color we'll have 6 gradients, and for the first color let's do the alpha to 1, and we'll set somewhat around here. The alpha will be set to mm, this one. Yep, this one should be more than enough. So for this white, let's set the color to be, the first one is white color or grayish. Let's add a new gradient, and this one gradient, and for the second, in which we set the color to gray, the second one will set the color to a reddish. And why is it not red? Okay, so this one is a reddish color, and we'll set it as the new parameter. Let's add another one, and here let's use the first one and we'll set the color to black, and we'll set it as a new. Similarly, let's create another one, and for this color we'll set it as a bright orange. Let's set it up as a new, and similarly let's set the last two ones. So this one was the bluish one, and we'll set it as a new gradient. And similarly there's the last gradient, which is also white, but we already have white, but we'll set this one to pure white. So these are gradients, and inside our color everything should be fine. So now if we hit play, maybe there will be no problems. Okay, so there are no problems, but we are getting some errors. So we need to set up our menu car. So let's go inside our prefabs, and inside materials, instead of none, we need to set the materials to default line and cast shadows to off. And now uh, okay, it is working, but there is a problem with the gravity, so it doesn't need to have any gravity. And the mass is almost perfectly fine. So now if we hit play, it should not rotate, and as you can see, the cars are spawning. I don't know why is it not. uh, the position is correct. We didn't set the start pose. Okay, we need to set the start pose. So after setting the translate at the end, we'll need to set the start pose to be the transform dot position. So the start pose was not set up, and now it should work. And inside our color gradients, the problem is that at the end, all of them are white. So we need to, let's set this color gradient. So inside the end, it's white. We need to set all of them to change. So it's changed to transparent. This one also we need to change to transparent so it doesn't show the white part. And now all of them are transparent, so there should not be any more problems. And we also set the still the white part is not going. And we need to set the tree render as order in layer to negative, order in layer to -1. And for all of this, let's, no, I don't need this. Again, this one is still white. This one needs to be gray. None of them did change. The problem was that now this one needs to be this color. This one also needs to be this color. And maybe now the problem should be fixed, but who knows? It may reset itself. Yep, it's resetting. Why is it resetting? I don't know, but it's a pretty big problem. Okay, we need to replace. So this one is add. Now if we replace, yep, we'll need to replace it. That was a problem. So replace. Similarly for the white doesn't need anything, but for this one we need to set it to black, and we'll need to replace. Similarly, we also need to change this color and replace. Now, except for the black one, everyone should have the correct color setup. Why is it still white? Select. Okay, we need to select this one, and then we'll need to select this one, and then here we'll need to replace. And now supposing the first one was a gray. So now every car should be almost similar. So as you can see, we have the trailing effect, and some are Nah, no one's going. The trail is beyond, but the cars are going ahead. So similarly for the menu car sprite renderer, we'll set the order in layer to -1, and for this one we'll set the order in layer to -2. So that was for the menu car, and again this video is going to be almost 1 to 1.5 hour long. And now we go inside our gameplay scene. So our gameplay scene is almost pretty much blank right now. So we need to first set up the camera. So for the camera, the size is going to be 16, and for the color we are going to use light bluish light color, and it's 2053593, 20535 and 93. So this color we are going to use, and let's set a UI, and let's add an empty text, and we'll delete the text. And let's set up our canvas. Instead of overlay, we'll set it to camera, order in layer, plane distance to 10, scale with screen size 1080 by 1920, and match width or height to 0.5. So that's our basic canvas. And afterwards we are going to create the UI. So the first UI which is going to be attached is going to be a simple leaderboard. So we'll create an empty and we'll call it leaderboard. And anchor, it's going to be top left, and let's go inside the scene view so we can see. And position, we are going to set it as 64 and -64, and width and height we are going to set it as 128 by 128. So that's where our leaderboard is going to be. Now let's add an image to the leaderboard. So we have the crown image, so which is the 80 cross 80 size. And we'll also add the context. Again, this one was in the, what do you call it as? Where I'm seeing, so I just set it up. We are not going to use this leaderboard. Maybe when I create the ranking system, so it's going to be pretty much far away at the end. And the leaderboard is going to have a UI, and we'll just call it count, and we'll set its size to 256 by 64, and the position it's going to be doesn't matter, we'll just set it up at the center. And let's make it bold, and for the text we are going to use our default text, and the anchor is going to be the top right one. And now we'll set it 00, and let's set the font size to 64. And for the leaderboard, not top right, let's set it to top left, and now set it to 0. And now if we do it towards the right, we should be able to see centered 00. Let's set some random number, and 897. Okay, so let's move it at 128, and we'll position it towards the center or maybe towards the left. Okay, so towards the left is fine. And we'll set both its color to somewhat around 30, so it doesn't look bad enough. And pure white looks not much better. So we are going to set it as some gray. Now, after we have our leaderboard, we are going to have our coins. So let's duplicate this leaderboard. It's already set up, and we'll put the coins here, and we'll rename it to coins, and it's going to have an image. And for the image, let's set it up as white because our coins are going to be similar. So these are the coins. And similarly for the text, for the color, let's maybe pure black would be fine, and this one also black would be fine. So that's our leaderboards and the coins. Now these are going to be shown every time, so it does not matter where we put them. Now we'll need a pause panel, so the pause panel is going to be at the center. But before having the pause panel, let's create our game active UI. So again, it's going to be an empty, and we'll just call it game active UI. And inside this game active UI, the first thing we are going to have is the pause image, and it's going to be a circle. Let's select the circle, and everything's positioned from the top. Yep, 476896 476, not this one. And the size is going to be 128 by 128, and inside our pause we'll create an image, and we will just set the image to be, there should be an image for pause. Yep, here it is. So that's the pause button, and we'll also add a button to the pause and color tint to none. So after having our pause button, we are going to have one for the score, and the score is going to be positioned at the top. So let's create a UI first, and we are going to have an image score, and its size, it's going to be 512 by 80, and color will set it to black, and set the sprite to 9 sliced, so it looks pretty much better. We'll position it from the top. Ah, so our game active UI needs to span the whole screen. So now it looks better. So we are going to position it from the top, and let's position in the Y by -64. And as you can see, it's almost pretty much skewed, but it doesn't matter. Top center. Now it's also going to have text and text mesh pro, and we'll just call it count, and it's just going to say score position towards the center, some random amount, and PTS, and maybe we won't need to set it up. So let's make it bold, change the font size to 80, uh, 80 do, and we'll need to change the sprite, and instead of it, let's set it to 768, and maybe 512 should be more than enough. So that's where our score is going to be. Now after having score, we are going to have a couple of boosts. So again, we'll create on the game UI an empty parent, and it's going to be for the boost folder. So here we are going to show the three arrows which are going to show which boost we are holding, and inside our boost folder we are going to have three images. So let's create our first image first, and let's also position this boost correctly. So the boost currently it is at the center. We need to position it from the top, and size, let's 512 by 80, and position y we are going to set it to negative 256. And I'm supposing you can negative 256. So that's where it's going to be for now. And mm, mm, mm. let's add our first boost. So it's going to be an image, and let's call it boost one. Uh, and I think instead of negative 256, let's add 128 and subtract 64. So this one looks better. So boost one, it's going to be a check mark image, and for now the check marks are going to be black, and we'll position the X position by negative 128, and let's increase the size to 128 by 128. We duplicate boost one, we should be able to get the boost 2, and we'll just change its position, and similarly we'll get the boost 3. So this are going to be shown when the game is active, so there is not going to be much problem. Now after having our boost holder, we'll duplicate the boost holder and rename it to health holder, and similarly we'll change all of its size to 80 by 80, and the image we are going to have is the heart image, and the color we are going to have is the red color. So red is a pretty much default here, and here instead of boost one we are going to have health one, and it's going to count it from the right. So instead of 80 we are going to have positive 80. The second one we'll just need to rename it as 2, and similarly for the boost 3 we are going to rename it as health 3, and the position it is the third one, so it's going to be position negative 80, and the whole health holder it's going to be moved towards the right by negative 512 minus 128. So that's where our heart is going to show up, or the number of lives. So after having our active UI, we are also going to have a event slider on our health holder. So at the position of the health holder, let's duplicate this health holder and remove all of this, and let's rename this health holder to revenge slider, and I think we'll need to create a custom slider for it. So inside the game active UI we have the pause, the score, the boost. Let's create a UI, and it's going to be a slider, and it's going to be positioned from the top. Let's position X negative 256 plus 64, and let's increase the size to 512 by 128. Transition we are not going to use color tint, but for the handle slide area we are going to just remove the slider, and it's ugly looking, but we'll set it up, and let's set it to 1. And for the fill area we'll set the fill color to be a greenish one, so it should be somewhere around here. So now if you change the background and background. We'll set it to what color should we set? Let's set it to background now and let's see how it looks. So black and green, but our handle is width by height 0 by 0. Okay, we need to set the handle width is 20. What if we set it to 0? Yep, it should be more than fine. And suppose we just delete the handle, it doesn't matter. Handle rect. Let's just not delete it. We'll need it, but we'll set its width to 0. So now if we change the slider, we should be able to see how it is going. And we set the handle width to 0, but handle slide area 0, 0, 0. Nope, didn't work. And let's set the slider name to the revenge slider. So we are not going to show the revenge slider at start, but whenever the revenge mode is on, we'll start the revenge slider. And after creating this UI, we'll create the next, which is the before the game is activated, which is the game start and game active. Yep, won't matter. The game active UI is going to be called. And let's go into the game start. So it should be inside the canvas, and let's create a button. And we'll call this as game start. And let's increase its size to 1080 by 1500. And position doesn't matter. Button will remove the component and set the sprite transparency to 0. So whenever we click on this button, we should be able to start the game. And let's create our UI and we'll just call it text. And inside the text, we'll just say tap to start and increase the height and the width to 768 by 128, position towards the center, change the size and the font, and let's make it bold. And for the color, let's just HSV, what color did we use? For now, let's leave it to black. So this is the start text. And afterwards, we'll also need to create an input screen, which we are going to use for the mobile. So let's go into UI. And for now, let's create an empty, which is going to span the whole screen. And here we'll call it input panel. And inside our input panel, we are going to create our first image, and this one is going to be the left, and the position is almost towards the center, so let's position it negative 270, and the size we are going to use is 540 by 1408. The sprite's going to be none, but we'll set the transparency to 0, and we'll duplicate the left, rename it to right, and put the position to the positive, and this we are going to use later on, but we'll add the button script now. And the color tint is going to be none. Now that should be it for the start and the input panel. We'll hide the input panel for now. The game start is going to be shown at the start of the screen, and the game active UI is also going to be shown, so we'll also hide that because now we are going to create the UI for the game end. So it's almost similar to how we did for game active, and we'll call it game end UI. And we also forgot to create the pause panel, so before that let's create the pause panel. Let's duplicate this game active UI and we'll call it pause panel. let's have it the whole screen. And the first thing here we are going to create is the play button. The play. Okay, so it's going to be play. So let's create a UI and let's add an image and we'll call it play. Let's change its size to 128 by 128. Move a little bit towards the left. Okay, we need to position at the 476 896. So, and for the sprite, we are going to use a circle sprite, and that's where our play button is going to be. And we'll add a UI and image, and inside this image, we'll add the play, where's play, and maybe we'll just set it to play should be around greenish black. Let's just set it to black. I'm not good with colors. And after having a play button, there are going to be two more buttons. So let's create a UI, and this one is also going to be button. Color tint set to none, and let's create a UI image, and we'll just call it go to main menu. And inside our go to main menu, let's increase its size to 160 by 160, position X by negative 160. Hmm. And color, we are going to set it to the bluish color. Because the sprite is none, we are not going to see it. Sliced or maybe around circle. So that should be our HSV. So let's have it a color of around dark blue. And for the image, we are going to use the menu image. So let's create a UI image and we'll use the menu image. It should be around here. And we'll create the duplicate to menu. Let's change its position to positive. And this one's going to be for the restart. And for the restart, for the menu, let's set the tint to red. And similarly for the restart, we are going to use the refresh button, which should be at the start or and yep, the refresh. So these are the pause panels, and our pause is looking so flat. So do we need to change the color and set the image color to white? So the colors are so much black. Let's have it the dark. Play needs to have some. We'll just leave it for here. So this one's the pause panel. So the pause panel is also going to show us the active panel, but this button is going to override it. So it's almost on top of it. So as you can see, if the pause panel is not there, there's going to be the pause button. But if the pause panel is there, there's going to be the play button. Now let's start creating our game and UI, and it should be almost half an hour, yeah, 45 minutes. See, told you it's going to be 10 hours long video. Whole playlist is going to be more than 10 hours long. I'm estimating, I don't know, maybe it will be longer. So now we need to set up our game and UI. So the game and the UI are going to have couple of elements which we are going to create afterwards. So first one is the store, and the next is the upgrade shop, which is the shop we are going to use to have all our upgrades. So let's create our first item in the game. And so the first item we are going to use is the go to main menu, rate, and the achievements. None of them is useful, but we'll just create it. So let's call it go to main menu, and it's going to anchored from the top left. We'll duplicate the same thing over and over, and let's duplicate this go to main menu, and we'll just call it temporary. And the game and UI, we need to have it positioned around here. And the game active UI is not going to show up. So let's see how our go to main menu is looking. 512 and negative 128. And the width and the height we are going to set it as 160 by 160. The sprite we are going to use is a 9 sliced. And similarly, it's going to also have a button component attached to it. And the color we are going to use is the dark blue color, which we have already used before. Swatches, no swatches. Click to add a new preset. We'll set it up later, but I don't know where our colors were. What was the blue color again? I'll just set it up. Yeah. So it was a color of our title 19387. So let's go into 19387. So this one's the dark blue color. And similarly, let's go inside our pause panel, and let's also add color for our restart, which is this color, and also for our go to main menu, which is going to be the pinkish color, which we have used for the title 23747694. So now it looks much better. See, told you it's easy to create UI when you are already the colors right, or else even if you create nice functionality, it's going to end up looking like crap. And similarly for the play, I'm not going to do much anything good. uh, just interchange the colors here and there. So white, I think white should be more than good enough. And the play, it needs to be the dark bluish, which is the 21622. So now it looks better. And similarly, image, we'll use this color. So the pause panel is also looking good. Now let's go into our game and UI. So the go to main menu, let's go inside the scene. So it is around here. And do we have the color right? 19300. Okay, so the color is right. Now let's create all the buttons and the text. So the size is also correct. It should have an button component, and inside we are going to add an image, which is going to be 100 by 100, and we are going to use the menu, and we'll duplicate the go to main menu button, and this one is going to be the rate. And for the position X, we'll add 256, 512, 704. And the color, let's use the yellow color because we are going to use the rate. And where's our star? So this one's for the rating. Let's duplicate our rating. And the last one's for the achievement, which is the 896. And we'll rename it to achievements. And after having our achievements, maybe do we need to change its color again? Let's set up the. What color should we use? Mm, let's use the reddish color. E7 1D36. E7 1D36. Let's do RGB. E7. 15 14 into 16 plus 7. 1D 3 6 48 plus 6. So now it looks pretty much better. And similarly, inside our achievement, we are going to use our achievement sprite, which is almost similar to what we had in the start. It could have been different, but I'm going to use this one only. Now we have the three basic UI setup. Now the next thing we are going to need is the play button and the store button. So let's create our store button. Let's duplicate the stamp and rename it to store. And let's change its position first. So the store is going to be at 256 and negative 1024. And we'll change the width and height to 160 by 160. Image is going to be the 9 sliced. And we'll also set the color of the store to be the brighter one, or maybe the light one should be more than enough. And let's add an image, and the image we are going to add is a purse image. And for the store, let's get it to HSV, and let's decrease. We'll forget about the colors later. 5 and 12, negative 1280. And here we are going to have for the play, and we'll just call it play. And the color we are going to use is a pinkish color, pinkish. So where was our pink? Title 2 3747694. This is not the pink one. Mm, mm, Doesn't matter, we'll just use it. It does not have button component attached, we'll have it afterwards. So for the image, we are going to use the restart, and 3477694. Okay, so it is 347. Yep, now it looks much better. Now we have, why is it looking too bad? It's already in the portrait high mode, 1080 by 920. So we have the store image, we have the restart button. Now, according to the UI, let's add the add coins. So let's duplicate the stamp and we'll rename it to add coins. And for the position, we are going to use 768 by negative 1024. and width and height 468, 128. The sprite we are going to use is the 9 sliced, doesn't matter which one it is. And let's add the content to 152683. Mm, Not the total points. So here we are adding the coins. So let's set it up as the color of the coin, and let's make it a little bit larger. So the colors are not pretty much looking good, but who cares? So let's add a text to it first. UI text mesh pro, and the text is just going to say plus 100 size. Let's make it 128, and the font we are going to use is this one, position towards the center, and it should look good enough. Let's set it 96, and we are going to have an image for the coin and another image for the video. So let's first add an image for the video. It's going to be 100 by 100. Let's set the image to be the video image and position negative 160, and we'll set the size to 160 by 160, and we'll need to increase the width 100. Nope, 160, but the image needs to be 128 by 128. And let's add a space so it looks good enough. And now there's a problem. If we add the coin, it's going to match this color. So let's first add the coin, and then after we'll see what we need to do. So there's our coin, and here's our image, but our coin is the same color, so we need to change it to somewhat different color. So this color is looking fine, and we'll just set it up as it is. And for the image, we'll set it to coin image, in decrease the size to 80 by 80, and also the image size to 80 by 80. And now both are at the correct position, and the text is also at the correct position. It is full screen. 384768. So let's add our end score. So it's going to be another image. So let's create UI image, and let's call it end score position. Why did I create it like this? Let's duplicate this temp, rename it to end score, change the position to 384 negative 768. Width and height we are going to use 768 by 128, and the sprite we are going to use is the 9 sliced, and the color we are going to use is pretty obvious, the bluish color, and this one is a little bit whitish, don't know. And we'll add a font to it, UI text mesh pro, and let's just call it count, and we'll just use some random number. First points, let's make it bold, the size is 128, and width is going to be 768, position towards the center, change the font to this one. So it's we are never going to have this many points, so let's decrease the size, and this is going to be the end score. And before showing our end score, there's going to be our total number of points shown. So it's going to be similar to the end score, but we'll just call it total score. And it's positioned at 256, negative 1536, and 512 by 128. And it also has a text, but the size is a little bit decreased one. And after having that, we are going to have an add score, which is similar to our add coins, and we'll just call it add score. Instead of 160, let's have it 120, and for the position, let's use negative 1536. Looks good enough. And the text is going to be same. We'll remove the coin image, and the image is also looking good, but for the text, let's use this. I don't think space will be needed. Plus 100 points instead of 100, we'll use 10k, and we'll decrease the size to 80. And if we add 1, 2, 3 spaces, it should look good enough. So on clicking this button, it will add some points. So let's add a button script to it. Similarly, let's add a button to the add coins. Restart store achievement. Okay. And there are going to be two more things. The first one, what did I click? Game and UI. So inside our game and UI, we are going to have, let's create an empty first, and we'll just call it store open, which is going to be the open for the store, or maybe the store end, whatever you need to call. We'll add a store prefab to it, and also let's duplicate the store open, and we'll call as upgrade holder. And similarly, this upgrades holder is going to have 540 by, from the top, 540 by negative 1760. So it's positioned at this center position here, and doesn't matter what the size is, we are going to add our upgrades here and the store here. So that was the last for the game and UI. Now let's create an empty, and we'll call it managers. Let's reset its transform, and we'll add an empty game manager to the scene. And similarly, let's reset its transform. Inside our scripts, we'll create a game manager script, and inside our game manager object, we'll attach the game manager script. Now, for now, we are just going to show the all whatever and UI is not going to be shown, the pause panel is not going to be shown, and the input panel is not going to be shown. The only thing that's going to be shown is the active and the start. So we'll set it up in the game manager. So let's go inside Visual Studio, and let's go inside game manager, and first we'll create a static instance of it. And inside the awake, we'll check if instance is equals to null, then instance is equals to this, else we'll just destroy the game object. And let's start creating the pause and the play function. So game manager, it's going to be at pretty much start. So we have the public static game manager instance. Now let's create a serialize field and let's have a private game object. The first one is the pause button. Pause panel, game active UI, start button, game and UI, store panel, and the last one is the input panel. Now, after having all this serialized field, we are going to have a name game object for the player. Has game started? And let's create the start. So inside our start, we'll first set has game started to false, and start button dot set active to true, game active UI dot set active to true, game and UI dot set active to false, pause panel dot set active to false, input panel dot set active to false. Store panel dot set active to false. And when we start the game, so when we click, the game should start. So let's create that function. So public void start game. We'll do as game started to true. Start button dot set active to false, and next we'll have the input panel dot set active to true. And let's create the pause panel. Public void open pause panel, and here we'll do input panel dot set active to false, pause panel dot set active to true, pause button dot set active to false, and time scale to 0f. And similarly, inside our open close, we'll just change pause panel to false, true, and we'll just time scale to 1f. So that was for the close pause panel. Now we need something, the restart or the go to main menu button, and we'll also create the restart button. So time scale is going to be 1f, and unity engine dot scene management dot scene manager dot load scene, and we'll load the gameplay scene, and not the gameplay. We'll load the main menu scene, and we'll duplicate this go to main menu, and here Instead of go to menu, we'll use restart game. Load scene, and we'll load the gameplay scene. So this much function should be more than enough for our interactivity. And also this video is around 1 hour 10 minutes long. So this is the basic UI setup. So after we create all our game objects, we won't need to set it up again. So I've just created everything from the start. So let's go inside Unity and let's attach all of our functions. So the game manager, input panel, game start, and the text. So the first thing we'll need is the pause text. Let's see what we can do. Game active UI. This one's the input panel. Player, we have not created it yet, but we'll do it afterwards. Next, we have the pause panel, and inside our game active UI, we should have our pause button. And start button, which is the game start, the game and UI, the store, which is stored in the game and UI. So we'll get it from the store open. And as you can see, the player, we have not created it. So let's hit play, and it should not show any problems, but now we don't have any function. So let's create the first function for our the pause button. So inside our pause button, let's add the interactivity. Let's add the game manager, and it's going to be the open pause panel. And when the pause panel is open, let's go inside the pause panel. Inside the play, we'll add the close pause panel. Where is C? And inside the go to main menu, let's add a button component, color it into none. And this one, we are going to the main menu, so we'll set the function to go to menu. And similarly for the restart, we'll add the button component and transition to none. And this one, we are going to go or simply just restart the game. And let's also create the function for our game start, which is simply the game start function. We'll have multiple things calling from there, but for now we are just going to use the game start. So whenever you hit play, the game started. As you can see, the text is gone, and whenever we play, we are going to change the scene, and whenever we restart, the scene is getting restarted. So that was for the gameplay UI. After this video, or in the next video, we are going to create our player and the player movements. And thank you guys for watching. If you did like the video, do watch the next video. And if you really want to create the game, at the end of this series, I'm going to attach the GitHub link. So thank you guys for watching.